Hey everybody, I am Stacy with New Creations by Stacy. I'm the owner and artist. So I'm going to go ahead and check just to make sure we're live, and then we can go ahead and get started. If you guys are just jumping on, just say hey where you're watching from. Let's make sure. So far I can't see it yet, so well. Yeah, I'm guessing maybe I'm not live yet. I'm not able to see the video yet, but if you guys, I see a couple people. Okay, perfect. So hopefully I can just get the comments. Here we go. All right, fantastic. So again, I'm Stacy. Happy Monday, everybody. Just coming on tonight. Hey, Dixie Belle. Just coming on tonight to go ahead and start the painting process on our start to finish nightstands. Hopefully if we have enough time, I'll get to the stencil on the drawer sides as well, the Lotus Bloom stencil. But just a couple of things before we get started. If you know anybody who could use this video, please share it, as well as in the comments section. I do have my link for my page listed, if you can like and follow me on Facebook. And then also we have the Chalk Enthusiast group link listed to like and follow there. Lots of cool pictures and information on there as well. And then also the affiliate link, I almost forgot. The affiliate link, if you wanted to order any products or find your local retailer, you can do that through there. And then, by the way, I'm an elite retailer in Ardmore, Alabama at the Rustic Willow. And I have my location here in Madison as well if you need to find me locally. If you are a retailer on here, just put your store location. I will definitely like and follow you. As well as that just helps anybody who's watching find you if they're in your area as well. Oh, hey, Nikki from Australia. Oh, hey, I do see some people. Hey, Wanda. I know, back again, right? So you guys, if you watched last week, and I'm so sorry, I said that probably Thursday or Friday I would come on and strip the top of these nightstands. Last week, life, it was just a little bit hectic, so I didn't get on. I did go ahead on my page about an hour and a half ago or so, come on and go through the whole process of how to strip the nightstands. This is the one that I started with, so that's why it's still on there. I had to switch out all the products to get to this live. So if you do need to see that, that is on my page. You can just click on the link, and it's the first post in my timeline now after the pin post. Hey, Philippa. Oh, yes, good morning. I know it's already Tuesday in Australia. All right, so to get started tonight, we are actually going to be doing a little kind of blended layering with silk. And you can see I have the first coat on this piece. We're going to do a little bit with the first coat on here. Then we're going to come over and do the second coat. And then, like I said, if we have time, we'll stencil. But the colors here that we're going to be using tonight, we've got Silk in Quiet Cove. It's just a beautiful kind of a blue-gray color. And then we also have Saltwater that we're going to be mixing it with. And that's just kind of, it's like the whitest white in Silk. And Silk is awesome because it does have a stain blocker in it. So one coat is equivalent to one coat of Boss, which is why we didn't have to Boss the outside of this. And last week, by the way, I did do the prep process for these, so you can go back and find that last week on the Chalk 101 page as well. Oh, thanks, Cynthia. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started with that. So for the first coat, and I'm actually going to do the second coat a little bit different. I think I want it to be more white in here. But for the first coat, I did use a round small brush. My brushes are really well used. I need some clean as a whistle on this one. And then we're going to also be using an oval small for this piece as well. So let's see here. Got my cups. What I'm going to do first is just go ahead and put a little bit of paint in these cups. I don't really work out of my jars. So I've got my FIFO bottles. Let me make sure you can see this full piece here. Hey, Jerry. Let's see. I'm going to bend you guys down just a little bit. And we're only going to paint this bottom section, this part, until I remove the stripper. I'm going to leave that the way it is. But you can see here also on the live I just did an hour ago, I showed how to sand these down after we filled them last week with the Dixie mud. So if you want to take a look at that, that is also on my page. And next week we are actually going to work with, next week we're going to be working with the Voodoo Gel stain on the top. We're going to do a water-based stain. And then we're also going to do the wax and the protectant on here. So for the first coat, we'll go ahead and do the drawers. So I did pull the drawers out here. Normally, these drawers cover the sides. If this was one where the drawers went in, I would keep them pushed in and paint the whole thing together. But in this case, I'm going to go ahead and pull them out. I don't have to worry about that consecutive, you know, making sure everything blends correctly there. So first, I'm just putting a little paint on my brush. And we're going to go ahead like this. So this is pine, by the way, and pine is a bleeder. But like I said, I did not have to use Boss. The knots are what bleed on pine because the silk already has it in here. So on this first coat, I'm more or less worried about coverage rather than blending. So I just want to make sure, and I'm putting it on heavy still like I did the first coat. I won't go lighter until this second coat. So with silk, you do have to work pretty quickly because it's an all-in-one mineral paint and it dries a little bit differently than the chalk mineral paint. You have to kind of mix your colors while it's nice and wet. If it's allowed to dry, then they're not gonna blend up very well. But you can't spray it with water because if you do, it doesn't mix in correctly, and you'll end up really with a mess. So I'm just kind of going over some of these areas, and what this is doing, it's not quite like blending. In some places it's mixing together kind of to form another color. And it's just like basically I'm mixing it on my drawer here. But I love the way silk gives you kind of this, when you do it this way, it gives you a really cool kind of layered, streaky look that I really love, especially when you're going to come back and wax it later. It's, and this is dried up a little bit. I just wasn't fast enough because I'm talking while I'm doing it. You can actually work in smaller sections, which I'll do on the side. But I can come back in with this brush with my Quiet Cove on it. I didn't put any more paint on it. I just want it to be a little bit more in those recessed areas to create that nice shadow. What I'm doing right now is I'm going over it smoothly to kind of get rid of some of these brush strokes. But silk is a self-leveling paint. So as it dries, some of these brush strokes are going to come out anyway. But you don't want to overwork it because silk dries from the top in instead of kind of all at once. And since it dries that way, you will end up pulling that top coat back if it gets dry and you keep trying to go over it. So you have to get it while it's still wet. And I'm just adding a little bit more shading to that area here so it's giving me a nice smooth look. And let's go ahead and come down. We'll do this drawer. And it's going to be the same thing. Yes. Yeah, I know. I love silk too. It's so amazing. cuts out steps too. So technically the way it's advertised that you can't blend with it, but I mean you can, you just don't blend it the same way that you blend like the chocolate mineral paint, and you're not necessarily going to get the same look either. I'm actually going to do this side. I'm going to do it pretty quickly. You see, I don't have very much on my brush. If I want to keep it in the grooves, I can just hold my brush farther down by the bristles. But I kind of want to make sure I get coverage, so I'm not doing that as much as I will on the second coat. I'm just trying to get some on here so I can kind of get my base color going. And silk has amazing coverage. And it might seem like you only need one coat, but for the integrity of the paint, you do want to put 2 coats on here. But you can see how nice the coverage is on this piece over here. And let's put just a little bit more right in here. I'm not really brushing this out. That went on pretty thick. So now I'm going to take some. We're going to start in the middle here because I want that to be lightest. And we're just going to start moving it around. Like I said, it's kind of blending together. It creates a beautiful kind of streaky, dry brush look in some areas. It doesn't quite look like a matchy finish per se, but it just has wonderful dimension. And the colors come together so wonderfully. And I'm also using the same brush. Notice I'm not using another brush to blend with. I'm using the same brush. I will switch it out potentially if the color gets too mixed up on the brush. I just want to make sure, again, first coat is really about coverage. So I just want to make sure that I get in here really, really well. The second coat will be more about how it looks. Just want to make sure I've got everything. So that's it there. So now what I did was, for this first coat, I went ahead and pulled out the drawers and then painted this separately. I am going to go ahead and pull you around to the side so we can do the side right quick so you can see how that first coat kind of comes about. Whoops. I must spill paint all over my phone. Which would be so me. I don't know about anybody else, but I am the messiest painter ever. Alright, so on this second side, oh, and see, look here. I've got some issues with the coverage on the side here. So I'm just going to come in and brush a little bit of this Quiet Cove on here. Same thing with the top drawer. I couldn't see this side because at the angle with the camera, I didn't want to be right in front of the drawer. So I'm just fixing that up a little bit. Alright, so for the side, I'm actually just going to start here because I want to finish stripping before I touch up there. So with this, because this is a much larger section, I'm going to go in pieces. So I want this Quiet Cove, I want it a lot up here. I don't want to thin my Quiet Cove out too much. I kind of want it to be thick as I'm putting it on. That's going to slow down the dry time a little bit, give me a little more workable time, and it's also going to allow me to pull everything together. So you notice I'm not going with the wood grain or anything like that. I'm just trying to get this on and make sure it's nice and wet, because again, you have to do this kind of in a hurry. And then I'm going to come back and worry about the direction of my paint and how it comes together. I'm going to get that blended in. I'm going over this very lightly. Very, very light hand there because I just want it to pull together. Kind of go in the same direction and blend up nicely. Oh, thanks, Cynthia. sometimes I forget what I'm doing because I start talking too much. Or sometimes I think I get caught up in painting and let's see. All right, so we're pulling this up. Again, I want this section to be dark. Go ahead and stick some down there. And then we're gonna come back to the white. And see, this is kind of the brush I'm blending with and putting my white paints on with. So you can see pretty good amounts. And again, I'm just gonna bring it down into the quiet cove. And then I'm going to, so this part is starting to dry. I've got to kind of quickly get that together. And I'm just coming back here, and now is where I'm hitting that light brush. I'm kind of picking my brush up where it's meeting right here, and the reason I'm doing that is because this has already started to dry. It dries from the top in, so that top coat, if I go over that too heavy, don't pick my brush up, it's gonna start pulling it back. So that's pretty much it there. And then we're gonna go ahead, I'm gonna put a little more quiet cove because I want the bottom to be mostly quiet cove. We're gonna go ahead and kind of get that on. I've got that indent here where I'd have a natural shadow, so we'll put that into the quiet cove. And then we're gonna go ahead and come back with the Saltwater. See how dark my brush kind of got though from that last little bit? You can kind of wipe it off. Oh wow, a painted clock. I've never done a clock, but I've kind of wanted to. Is it a grandfather clock or is it a just like a mantle clock? So anyway, I'm just coming in, I put this on, and I'm just going back and forth with my brush. Little bit of a heavier hand here. Little bit of a heavier hand here because I want to get it worked in coverage-wise to all these like little, I've got some dents in this piece. I want to get all the paint worked into there so it's not like wood showing through. So that's why I'm doing this dabbing, just to get it in there, but then I'm going back over it very, very light, feather-like brush to smooth it out. I've got a spot down here it didn't get into. There we go. And that's the main thing with that first coat, is just making sure that you have pretty good coverage. You can come back in on the second coat and get some of that, but the second coat, you're more looking for your overall look. You want it to be nice and smooth. But you'll see actually as we go through this, when I do this, it may not look as nice and smooth, but there's a couple tricks that you do at the end to kind of bring your blend together a little bit more. So we're gonna go ahead and switch these pieces around, and we're gonna start doing the second coat. I just gotta be careful with this one because I've got all this stripper up here. I don't wanna end up dumping that on the floor. That's a messy process. All right, there we go. So I'm going to switch up a little bit on this second go round because I don't want as much blue on here. So I'm actually going to be using an art brush, and I think though that I am going to go ahead and go with an oval small again, but I'm going to get a new brush. And you know, if I had my mister bottle around here, I would mist my brushes. When you're not using them, you can mist them down, put them in a Ziploc baggie, and until you can get them cleaned. You can keep them actually for a little while too in the fridge. But anyway, I didn't bring either one of those things out. Doing a live right before this on my page was stripping it. Not quite as organized as usual. Alright, so I'm not seeing any more questions or anything like that yet, but if you guys think of anything, it doesn't even have to pertain to this. Ask and if I miss it, I'll go back at the end and answer any questions. But Dixie Belle is here too, so they'll be on to help answer as well. Oh, hey, Mom. I see my mom just popping on. All right, so for the second coat, like I said, I want to bring more white in, and I'm more interested in this being a nice, smooth look. So I'm going to use my art brush because I don't want to apply too much of the Quiet Cove. And I'm just going to kind of go along these indents right quick. I want to keep it thick because I don't want it to dry out too quick. And actually, I think I'm going to, well, I've already started it this way. Let me just do this quickly, actually. I was going to do it in pieces, but put this on kind of thick. Go right here. Go right here. Just in those recessed line areas. I think I'm going to do this with a grunge gray wax as well. Maybe mix it with a little dark wax, make it a little bit darker. So we're going to come in the center here. I want to have my Saltwater. And I already pulled some of the Quiet Cove in. Actually, I'm going to put a little bit more Saltwater on here. Go along the top, along the sides, a little bit over here and here. And I'm just popping this paint on because I'm going to blend it all together, but I don't want it to dry out too much while I'm getting to that process. So I'm creating a lot of different colors here. I just want to make sure that my paint comes together. It looks nice and cohesive on this second coat. I think I'm going to come back with some dry brush too. I think that'll give it a really pretty look. Just want to make sure all my paint is nice and smooth. Want to get through all those brush strokes. So actually, I have quite a bit of paint on here. I am going to wipe it back slightly because I want to be able, and I got to be quick because I know this is already drying. It dries very quickly. This is feather light what I'm doing here. There we go. So I'm pretty happy with that look. You can see it's a little bit lighter. It does dry slightly darker, so it will darken up a little bit. But you can see how cohesively the paint comes together. So this is already drying. And I've got a little tiny eyelash size hair right there. I really want to pick it out, but I know my paint is already getting a little too tacky to do that. So I'm going to leave it there. I can come back with a fine grit sandpaper, which I'm going to do anyway. It's going to give it that smooth, silky, wonderful finish feel. When I do that, that will knock that little hair out and I won't end up damaging my paint. So I'm going to leave that alone. Kind of trying to watch the time here. You know what? I tell you what, for the second coat, let's go ahead and switch over to the side. I want to make sure I have enough time to get to the stencil. And see, I didn't get the blend too great. This is the nice thing too about using your paintbrush as your same as your blending brush. The color on here stays pretty much the same. So I can do that slight little touch up on that edge without damaging anything or pulling anything back. So here's my side so far. I'm going to go ahead and wipe my brush as well because I want that Saltwater in the center to pick up a little bit more. So I'm just going to, I kind of dried the paint off my brush. And, oh, thank you. All right, and then I'm going to, still using my art brush, I'm going to do the same thing I pretty much did before. The reason I'm using the art brush is because, you know, the paintbrushes hold a lot more paint than you think. And so for me to control how much paint I'm putting on and not be so heavy-handed, a small brush is how I kind of correct that. So I've got quite a bit. You can see about how much of the Saltwater on here. And I'm going to go first right up next to this Quiet Cove, because I want that to really come together. I'm going to add a little bit more white because I want it brighter down here. And we're just going to bring that up. So you can see I had painted this and I got a little stripper up there. It took the paint off. That's why we're not going up that high right now. I am going to go ahead and wipe my brush off again a little bit, because now I'm not really trying to blend as much as I want to go ahead and smooth it. Go across here again. It's very, very light. I just want to get rid of all those brush marks. Again, it's self-leveling. I'm just a little bit picky, so that's why you see me being so careful on those end steps. So we're going to do the same thing down here. We're just going to bring some of this in. Right, and then we're going to come along with our Saltwater, same brush, keeping it down here. See, this is already starting to dry. And I'm really pulling a lot up into here. So sometimes if you're working in an area like this and you're pulling it together, I was just going too slow. You may have to come back and do a little bit of touch up, but usually, and I'll try to show you guys this part live to you so you can literally see every step. Because if I go right over here, I didn't work fast enough, I'm going to pull my paint back. So I don't want to mess with that. I'm going to actually kind of leave this alone, and I'm going to come back. This section right here is what I want to fix. Everything else looks nice coming together. This section right here, I want to fix it, but I'm going to start pulling it back if I touch it. So I'll wait till it dries. And actually, if I was painting this whole thing like I normally would, I would just move around to another section, and then I would come back to this, and I just kind of lightly take my brush and go over it, do a little dry brushing. It'll blend it together. When I do that fine grit sandpaper, it really will bring it all together. Hey, Kristen. All right, so that's it. That's literally how you paint this. First and second coats. Kind of the same, but you can kind of see how the second coat is drying here. It just has a beautiful, it's a cross between like blending and layering. And that's why I love doing this with silk. It just gives you such a great look with not a ton of work. So that's that. The reason I kind of not going further with the second coat is I want to get to the stencil on the sides. And I do have a couple videos with this blending style with different colors and silk, so you can go back and check those out. Those are on my YouTube channel, which there's links for that on my page, but you can go through the timeline too. So we're going to go ahead and, so these drawers are a little hard to come out. We're going to go ahead and pull it out, and I'll drop you guys down. Oh, thanks, Wanda. And I will drop you guys down, and we're going to stencil the side. So I'm probably going to mess this drawer. You know what? Let's go with the bottom drawer, because I haven't, actually I'm not going to put that one back in. Let's go with the bottom drawer, because I didn't do the second coat on it yet, and so I'll be okay to set it on its side so that we can stencil this on right here. So let me go ahead and bring you guys in. Like I said, I'm trying to do these pieces completely start to finish because sometimes it's hard. You see the final piece and it's great, but you really don't know every single step of how someone got there. So that's kind of why I wanted to do this month. So we're going to be using this new stencil right here, Lotus Bloom. It's from Fab Designs. She's awesome. If you guys don't watch her, she's in Australia, so she comes on pretty early in the morning. But I love this design. And we're just going to get it out here. So for stenciling, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to stencil. It just kind of depends on the look you're going for. And if you weren't here last week, we did actually go ahead and put one coat of Boss on here. And the reason that I put the one coat of Boss on was because I wanted it to, not have any bleed through. I was planning on doing white. And Silk has a coat of Boss in it equivalent to one coat. But I just wanted to make sure that I didn't have any issues. I'd rather be careful than have to go back and rework something. So I'm just taping this on. You can actually use like a spray adhesive to attach it. Oh, is she in England? I don't know why I thought she was in Australia. Whoops. Thank you so much for correcting me. All this time I thought she was in Australia. All right, so I don't know. Maybe I just have Australia in my mind. So as far as stenciling goes, like I said, there's a lot of different methods. Tonight, my pick or preference really would have been to use the Best Dang wax brush, but I use mine for wax and I don't actually wash them. So I didn't have enough time. You have to start stenciling with a dry brush, otherwise you will have bleed through if you try to do it with a wet brush. So I have a small stencil brush that's kind of tiny. I could use a makeup sponge too, but those aren't clean either. I've got a lot of projects going. So I'm actually decided I was going to use the bell brush. You do want more of a natural bristle for your stencil, but you can, in fact, I'll do it a little bit. You can use the synthetic brushes. I'll do a couple of sections differently. It affects the way, though, that potentially the bleed through on it. So what I actually want to do, I was just going to go with white, but I think I'm going to do a fade on here with the Quiet Cove and the Saltwater. So I'm going to start off with this brush here. You know, please help me. My mind is blank right now. I can't even think of what this brush is called. It'll come to me in just a second. But when you're stenciling, you do want some paper towels, or I use shop towels because they're lint free, so then you don't get all the little, you know, lint or fuzzies in here. So what I'm going to do is just dip. This isn't, Best Dang brush is all I can think of right now, and that's not what this is called. It's going to come to me as soon as this live is over. Dixie Belle knows, though. All right, so I've got a little bit on here. I'm actually going to wipe it off so there's really nothing. That's going to help prevent a lot of bleed through. And I think I'm going to start at the bottom here. I'm just going to dab it on very lightly. You know, it didn't look like I had much paint left on my brush, but you can see it's coming on here. It's quite a bit more than it looked like. And I just dip it right on my paper towel here again. Wipe it back a little bit. And start going. And of course I'm holding this down so the places that I'm going are nice and flat against here. And I want this to look a little bit distressed too, by the way. I may end up coming back if I need to. I'm going to use the same brush here. Again, just wipe most of the paints off until it's pretty dry. And then I'm going to start making this fade up a little bit. Kind of blend it on the sides just like we did on the drawers. So I had a little bit, pay attention to this spot. I had a little bit in excess of the salt water. Whenever I just did that, I didn't really wipe enough off. So this section is not going to be as crisp probably when I take this off as necessarily where I wiped more of the paint off. So again, I'm just coming in on my paper towel. You can do this on a paper plate and wipe it back a little bit. However, I just moved my stencil. Again, I would have it taped in more places if I was really concerned about it being nice and crisp. But it's the drawer side. I think I want it to be a little bit, kind of a little bit worn looking. Not so opaque either. Maybe a little bit transparent. Let's keep going here. We'll finish up this one little bloom and then I'll switch brushes so you can see if you think there's a difference or not. You know, I still cannot think of the name of this brush. I hope someone posts it. It's the, thank you, the Bell brush. Thank you, Dixie Bell. My brain was just not working there. You know, I don't use this brush frequently. In some ways, it works pretty well for, well, it depends on how I'm blending, but I usually don't use it for a blending brush either. I really love the synthetic brushes, and I use those most frequently. So now it's not blending as much, but I'm kind of going down here. And given this, you probably won't be able to see it on camera, but it's almost given a dry brush effect on the bottom here. So let's go ahead and switch over now to go with the round large. I've got another clean one here. And again, I've got excess paints on my paper towel, so I'm just going to put a little bit on there. Wipe it back a little bit. So if you're gonna stencil, this is not my recommendation, but just so you can see, if you're gonna stencil with this brush, hold your bristles down low. On these brushes, it's, I really should have, you know what? Before I go further, I'm gonna go ahead and tape this down right here, because I'm shifting a lot, but do the same thing. Just want to hold it down. You know, I never stencil with this brush. This is about the only time I don't use these brushes. But if you hold it, if you just don't have a stencil brush, I mean, this is an option. I would prefer a makeup brush though, probably before I would use these, but this will just at least, I'm not going to do a large section with this. It's hard to wipe the paint off as much too. Actually, here we go. Like I said, I don't ever stencil with these brushes. So I'm dipping it in a little bit of salt water, wiping it back. When you wipe the, yeah, I'm assuming there's going to probably be a lot of bleed through. Like I said, I never do this. This way you can just kind of see how the difference is. There's a lot more paint that goes on. This isn't going to be as transparent as I would have liked. Yeah, I want to, because I don't want my bristles to go everywhere, I'm holding them down farther and just kind of pouncing this on. Actually goes on pretty opaque. I don't know what possessed me to try this all of a sudden live. I never stencil with this brush. There we go. I feel like this is going to be a lot darker. I may end up coming back and going over that first section and then just making this opaque. Oh yeah, taping the brush, definitely. I have seen people do that. I either like, my preference is either a stencil brush, which can double like a wax brush. And there's really no need to go back this far. The drawer won't really be out here. My preference for stenciling is really something like a wax brush or a makeup brush. Or not a makeup brush, sorry, a makeup sponge. That's probably actually one of my #1 go-tos is the makeup sponge. They're really dense. They're great for wiping off and tapping this on. Kind of goes pretty quickly. So there we go. So let's see how that turned out. Oh, I love it. Love it. So you can kind of see how that looks. We've got that, oops. We've got that nice fade going on with the Quiet Cove and the Saltwater. It kind of mixes together a little bit in the center. Let me hold you. See how I don't know that you can tell on camera, but it is more opaque on the ends where I used the natural, or not the natural bristle, but the synthetic bristle brush, the round large. And then this side over here that I use the bell brush, it's a little bit more transparent. But that's it. So that's the little just cute pop on the side that we're going to have. And I'm about out of time, but hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you know anyone who could use it as well, please share, sprinkle it around. And I will be back next week. We'll be doing, like I said, I might end up live on my page doing the clear coat, because we'll do a clear coat over this. And then we will do wax. I'll be using some gilding wax for the hardware and all of that good stuff. But I think that is, oh, and the stain. We'll be doing the Voodoo Gel stain on the top next week as well. But thank you so much. Oh, thank you, Dixie Belle. Thank you, Gina. And like I said, if you do want to see how to strip them, that step doesn't involve Dixie Belle, so I just did it on my page. So you can go to my page and see that as well. It's only like a 30-minute video. It's a super quick process. But thank you guys so much for hanging out tonight. And you guys take care. Have a great night. Bye.